So I will moderate the first session. We have 4 talks. I will start the first one. So I'll try to give a quick overview of what we do in the center. So before I start, I would like to thank the steering committee of the peer annual meeting. They worked hard in putting this program you are about to witness today and tomorrow. Sarah, Scott, Abel, Erica, Laura, Janelle, Christina, and Amarnath. Thank you for your great help in putting the program together. Also the peer staff who you meet at the reception desk, and they have been instrumental in picking this venue that's new for us. We used to meet in the I House, but wasn't available this year. Hopefully this will be a different setting after almost 3 years of not being able to meet face to face. So the peer staff is a very lean group of people in terms of the number, but they really do a lot of work. Without them, the center wouldn't really function. I also would like to thank the speakers and moderators. We have 51 speaker and moderator today. I don't expect you to read this small text, but you see all the short bios in the handout you received. So thank you all. I hope you stay in time during your talk because we have a loaded program. So as Dean Liu mentioned, I'm not going to go through the usual map that I showed many times about the distribution of the peer campuses, but we still have 11 core institutions and 9 educational affiliates. Just to remind ourselves that still our vision of the center is to be the leaders in resilient design for extreme events. Our status is we are the primary earthquake research arm of the state of California since 1997. Our impact have been recognized nationally and internationally with major contribution to the industry and the academia. So when I started thinking about what should I say in giving an overview of the center, then I went back and looked at the program, and then I found that the steering committee really did a good job in picking topics arranged in a certain way that maps very well to what peer does in terms of activities. So what you will see in today and tomorrow is a very good cross-section representative of what peer does. So this is what I will also do in this presentation, is I will go over in a little more detail about what you will see in the coming 2 days, today and tomorrow. So just before I start a little bit of statistics, we will have 6 plenary sessions and 4 concurrent sessions. As I said, we have 51 speakers and moderators. In addition to 16 lightning talks by students, I warned the speakers, you will not be able to match the energy of these students when they give their talks. We will have also 25 posters at the conclusion of today. At 11 p.m., Amarnath sent me the statistics of the registration. We have 212 registered attendees. Majority of them are students, which is great. 76 students and postdocs, 55 faculty, 53 practicing engineers, and 27 government representative and also peer staff. So in plenary 1, we will hear about major peer projects. The first one will be, or according to this list of slides, we will hear about the open source seismic risk tool, or OpenSRA, which adopts the peer performance-based earthquake engineering methodology, but for regional scale simulation of natural gas storage and pipelines. It's a project funded by the CEC, and we will hear about that in more details. I don't expect you to read this text, but we will also hear about another major project that we are very excited about, which is a collaboration between Pierre and Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, which is simulated ground motion database. So Pierre will embark in a few tasks in collaboration with our colleagues in LBNL, and we will hear more details about this with some fascinating animation that hopefully they will work smoothly. The third major project we will also hear about in this session is another database that are being developed, which is the next generation liquefaction database, which includes extensive liquefaction data from around the world. So we will also have a presentation about that. The fourth major project that you will not hear about in plenary 1, but you will hear about it at the conclusion of the annual meeting tomorrow in plenary 8, is the work we are doing related to Bridge Rapid Assessment Center for Extreme Events. This project aims at developing a platform that can simulate the performance of instrumented bridges, either in real time for rapid assessment or in almost real time for a more comprehensive assessment. Currently, the platform includes all instrumented bridges in California. Fewer of those have partial digital twin, which uses system ID, data-driven models directly on the data, and also have one bridge that has full digital twin, which is the Hayward Bridge, and we will hear more about that in plenary 8. In plenary 2, which will follow after a short break, we will hear about recent earthquakes and their implication on the United States. As Dean Liu mentioned, there was an earthquake early this week, but there were more devastating earthquakes earlier this year and last year. So Pierre continues to collaborate with the STEER, the Structured Extreme Event Reconnaissance Network. STEER doesn't only cover earthquakes, but Pierre plays the earthquake role within STEER. STEER also covers hurricanes, tornadoes, and tsunamis. The philosophy of STEER is to build capacity, promote collaboration, and coordinate a response to these major events. STEER started 5 years ago with funding from National Science Foundation. In the past 5 years, we have responded to 56 major events worldwide. 30 of those were earthquakes, and Pierre played an important role with its researchers, students, faculty, in being involved in the reconnaissance work of these 30 events. STEER is a very big network of members, several nodes in the United States and worldwide. It has 3 bodies of advisory boards on coastal, earthquake, and wind. And from these boards and the members, we form the steering committee of STEER that decides on which events to respond to and what level of response we should do. Do we deploy field team, or we stay in virtual team that collect things from the net? These recent earthquakes that STEER and in collaboration with Pierre have responded to, we will highlight 2 of them. The earthquake that unfortunately happened last February in Turkey This was a very devastating event. It was actually 2 earthquakes or 2 main shocks back to back with very short duration in between, and many aftershocks that followed these 2 events and also in between these 2 events. In peer and in earthquake engineering research in general, the main goal is we're not going to prevent the earthquake hazard, but we should prevent hazard from turning into disasters. And that's what we do in terms of research related to buildings, bridges, infrastructure, geotech system, and so on. Unfortunately, the Turkey earthquake turned into a disaster, because if we have 100,000 buildings that either collapse or need to be demolished, several life loss, dysfunctioning of cities, and so on, there is still more work for organizations like PEER to do, and there is still lessons to learn from these unfortunate events. On a good note, the transportation network was not as devastated as residential and business structures, so there is some hope that with good practice, following good quality control, following guidelines like the ones we are fortunate to have here in California from the seismic design criteria of Caltrans, that we can have systems that perform well and do not need to turn hazards into disasters. So we will learn about that in plenary 2. There was also an important event close to home in Ferndale back in December of last year. Exactly a year before, there was a comparable earthquake that happened in the same area, which is a well-known area near Mendocino, Triple Junction, but it didn't cause any damage. The one that happened last year led to not a disaster, not like the Turkey earthquake, but this event is very important because it generated a lot of data, and nevertheless, even though it's not as big as the one in Turkey, it still led to some dysfunctioning of towns and cities, and some residential homes were red tagged and people were chased out of their home. Probably some of them are not still able to go back to their home because of lack of insurance and not being able to perform the necessary retrofits. There were also some damage to the transportation network, and we're going to have an interesting presentation about the use of fleet of drones to map the damage in some components of the transportation network in one of the talks. We will conclude plenary 2 with new activities that PEER is starting in collaboration with the California Governor's Office for Emergency Services related to benefit cost analysis of the use of early warning systems in California, and also early deployment in airports of the earthquake early warning system. So PEER is involved in 2 of these projects that we will also hear about that in plenary 2. The research that PEER has been doing since 1997 have gone through extensive process of building knowledge, generating a large body of this knowledge, and we should always strive in bringing this knowledge to practice. And our industry advisory board is instrumental in guiding us as researchers on how our research can turn into useful products to the practitioners. So we are happy to work with our IAB towards this goal. So in plenary 3, we will hear about peer research to practice. Peer has done over the years several collaborative efforts with practitioners. I listed the 3 of them here. We have collaborated, as I mentioned, with several entities for reconnaissance work related to Turkey's Syria earthquake. That was with ERI and with SION, with involvement of many practicing engineers. Peer also worked with ERI and SION and other organizations in an advocacy role to include the retrofit of multi-story, soft-story wood frame buildings, which are most of our homes are made of such configuration, to put this back in the California state budget. Peer also have, over the years, have led projects that led to very important documents that are used by the industry, like the Tall Building Initiative, the work that was funded by the California Earthquake Authority, which actually in 2021 received the EISE award related to cripple wall and the retrofit in residential structures. So in plenary 3, we will hear about 5 engineering projects from prominent practicing engineers who have used peer products over the year in actual projects. So this should be a very interesting plenary. So speaking of peer committees, so these committees are typically populated by members from academia, funding agency, and engineering community at large. The idea is to shape the mission critical related to research through the research committee, related to funding opportunities through the resource identification committee, and through making sure there will be an impact of this research in the industry through the industry advisory board, as I mentioned. And we thank all the committee members for volunteering their time because none of them is paid. They just do that because they are passionate about the center and directing its mission towards useful activities. I cannot speak of committees without speaking about the peer student committee. The lesson I learned a couple of years ago, if you want things done, just give them to the students. They will get it done. They have abundance of energy, they are excited, and they don't ask for much. They just want to be involved. So we are very proud with our peer student committee. If I have a word of criticism to them, I hope they try to be more uniform across all the 20 campuses, and I know Omar Isa is going to have some words about that in his opening remarks for plenary 4, which is entirely designed by the peer student committee. So if they have done a great job, you thank the peer student committee. The peer headquarters have nothing to do with this session. If they have done a bad job, just blame the peer headquarters because we are the one who let them organize this session. So they have been super active. They have had several student pitches during the research workshop that we hold every year. We will also see some of that today, but not only 6. But 16, they keep pumping up the order of magnitude. They have been also interviewing students, PhD students on the verge of graduating, postdocs, trying to introduce them to the workforce. Thank you for doing that. They are a fantastic group of people who know how to use social media. I don't, and I don't want to, but they are very good at it. They're posting a lot of useful videos in social media. They're also approaching the several practitioners and academicians to give talks about different topics, and they follow up on that. as a way of introducing the graduate and undergraduate students to important topics that the industry is interested in. So please don't miss the fun in Plenary 4 of these 16 3-minute lightning talks. Also during this session, we will talk about the blind prediction, few announcements related to that. Peer, since Professor Steve Main, late Professor Steve Main, started the blind prediction in 2010. We continued that with many blind prediction that followed. So we will hear about a future blind prediction that we are planning, and also giving an award to the winner of this year's blind prediction. Right after that, there will be the conclusion of day 1, which will be done through the poster session that I encourage you not to miss. So as I said, you will hear also in Plenary 4 about the blind prediction that we have done over the years. So I'll skip that one. Tomorrow we will start with something new we haven't done before. Peer, as I said, has 11 core institutes. These institutes have fantastic experimental research facilities. So in Plenary 5, we will have talks related to the capabilities of these experimental facilities, hoping that next year we will have opportunities to fund some of the research to have experimental flavor and to be conducted in these facilities. So we will hear 5 talks related to 5 major experimental facilities from San Diego, Berkeley, University of Nevada, Reno, Oregon State, and UC Davis. So I mentioned about the experimental facility. Early, or a year ago, almost a year ago, we celebrated the 50th anniversary of the Berkeley Shaking Table. It was a very nice event, well attended. We had a demo in our table, and it was a way of going back in history and thinking about the early days of when the Berkeley Shaking Table started back in early 70s. Also, UNR had a great event in inaugurating their new large laminar soil box. And also San Diego went through a major renovation and upgrade of their shaking table, outdoor shaking table, to go from 1 degree of freedom to 6 degrees of freedom. So we will hear about that as well. After Plenary 5, now we roll up our sleeves and get into concurrent sessions, and we will be able to feature 20 of the peer projects, either just completed or they are still in the process of the research taking place. So these 4 concurrent sessions, 2 will be held at a time. You have to make a choice which one you like to go to. Either you want to hear about the Peer Bridge program, or you want to hear about the networks and regional simulation. And then after the lunch tomorrow, we have 2 more concurrent sessions about structures or about geohazards and geosystems. These are peer-funded projects, mainly through the Transportation System Research Program or through Peer Bridge program or other funding opportunities we had, and we were able to fund this project by researchers from the peer institutions. The last session after this concurrent session is Plenary 8, which is more of an open mic session. We will have 3 short presentations, and then we will have, I will open the floor for your input. We picked the topic of use of artificial intelligence in earthquake engineering. We cannot bypass ChatGPT and all these advances anymore. So we want to see, we want to gauge your interest and your wisdom, what will be the future of earthquake engineering in conjunction with artificial intelligence? As we all know, AI could be something that's related to vision-based deep learning or vibration-based machine learning. So we'll have talks about each of those, one of them using satellite imagery and the other using bridge applications. Or it could be even text-based, using natural language processing. We are doing some effort related to that in the context of the STEER reconnaissance work, where we are able to have real-time or long-term monitoring of structures. That's part of what we do in the BRACE2 projects, or automated and reliable decision-making towards more resilient cities, or to improve the way we do reconnaissance work of the built environment, if we can benefit from tools like natural language processing. So all this research that's taken place within the Peer Center and its institutions, I went back and looked at how many projects we have funded, the center have been involved in, and I didn't want to go back to the beginning of Peer. I went back only to January 2016, and I realized we have exactly 100 projects. When I counted 2 days ago, it was 99, and then I was reminded about another project. So Amarnath was telling me, oh, if it's going to stay 99, maybe we should give an award to the 100th project. It turned out the 100th project is already in place. So the majority of those projects, 82 of them were funded through the Transportation Systems Research Program, 8 of them through the Peer Bridge Program. 6 are either new or completed with involvement from CalOES and California Seismic Safety Commission, and then a new one with Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, one from NSF, which is mainly the STEER network, and one from California Energy Commission, and one from the California Earthquake Authority. What is the point of these 100 projects? What did they lead to? They led to 82 peer reports since January of 2016. These 82 reports, these are PhD thesis-like reports, 200, 300-page long. They are part of our portfolio of 353 reports that were published since 1998, the start of Peer. When the pandemic hit, we started thinking about new things, and we started adding DOI to these reports, and we're working backward to have them all with digital object identifiers. The 353 reports is not the whole story, because the predecessor of Peer, the EARC, which started in 1967, has 592 reports. So if you add up the two, we have a total of 945 technical reports. We haven't reached the 1,000 yet, so we are 55 reports short, with an average of about 15 reports per year. So we are looking 3-4 years to hit the 1,000 report. There will be an award for that, so keep that in mind. Who's going to have the report number 1,000? The first report was actually a report related to the peer shaking table by Professor Penzine and his co-workers that documented what these people were thinking when they wanted to build the first shaking table in the United States. Amazing report. I highly recommend reading it. So this large body of knowledge, I mentioned that in the 50th anniversary of the shaking table. I want to go through each one of these reports and add up the number of pages. I think we're going to be probably in the 100,000 page or something. which will be amazing to learn about. Last year, or a few weeks ago, we funded 10 new projects. We are looking forward to what these projects will lead to: additional reports, additional publication, more products that could help our community. So how do we decide on these projects? Amarnath liked to play with bubbles, so he has this bubble figure, which is a very useful figure that lists on the rows the 5 main areas of projects that we cover: the geotechnical, structural, performance-based earthquake engineering methodology, performance-based earthquake engineering tools, and several applications. On the columns, we have the scales of research. From micro scale, people who want to look at soil particles and void distribution and so on, all the way to those who want to look at regional scale. And then each of these bubbles is a project. The size of the bubble is how much money is going into this project. And we wish we had more money, so this become a very big bubble that cover the whole diagram, but that's not the case. So in the first, from 2016 to 2020, that's the scenario. Then we started looking, where are the cells where we have no bubbles, so we can focus, that the research committee can focus on. We modify our RFP so we can populate these empty cells. So in 2021, we actually succeeded in doing so. In 2022, it turned out people get the wind of the interest of regional scale, so everybody started writing proposals about regional scale. So we ended up funding more projects in regional scale. We have to pull back and start getting into smaller scale research maybe in coming years. So my last slide is to alert you that PEER at least going to have 4 events, stay tuned for PEER announcements. So we will have a workshop related to simulated ground motion. Hopefully this will take place in spring of 2024. David McCallan will be leading that. We will have a workshop related to performance-based seismic design, hopefully sometime also in spring of 2024, and another one related to fire simulation. And then we will have our usual researchers workshop in August. We usually have it in August of 2024. I get some backlash from the August selection from my direct colleagues in Berkeley, because that's the first week of classes. But the majority ruled in picking this time because of all the institutions that are in a quarter system. They were happy with this time to meet, and we don't want to delay it even further. So we are thinking to go back to the January. So next annual meeting will be 16 months from now. It will not be January of 2024, because that will be too close. It will be January 2025. And I wish you a great PEER annual meeting today and tomorrow. And I'm looking forward to having discussions with all of you. Thank you.